I guess my question is, when is it okay for a man not to be okay? Welcome to The Authentic Exchange, where real men have real conversations and engage in authentic communication. I'm Josh Bird, and I'll be your host. Welcome to today's episode, where we discuss when it's okay for a man not to be okay. When is the last time you sat down, you had a conversation with your friend, with a counselor, with a therapist, with your cousin, with one of your boys, with your significant other, and you talked about how you were feeling and the thoughts and emotions and things that you feel from a day-to-day perspective? As a man, I completely understand and I'm well aware oftentimes there are unexpected expectations placed upon us. And because of that, we often feel a pressure and a need to provide and supply or solve every issue and take care of everything for everyone else, all the while neglecting ourselves. As men, we oftentimes pride ourselves on our ability to be able to provide, on our ability to be able to give resources, to give advice, to solve problems and be solutions and have answers for the many questions that the world and the people around us have for us. In the midst of all of that, in the midst of being a superhero, in the midst of being a problem solver, a fixer, a resource provider, when do you take your cape off? Who comes to check on you? Have you even considered that you need to be checked on? Have you stopped, paused, and really listened to yourself? Oftentimes, as men, we feel the strong desire to tough it out, to man up, to get through it, to put your head down and grind it out. But anybody that knows and understands anything about the word grinding or the concept of grinding something means to wear down. How many of your boys, how many of your friends, your closest peers are always saying, hey man, I'm just on the grind. I'm grinding. Not fully aware, not fully understanding what that means. This is a wellness check. I want to know how you're doing. I want you to stop. I want you to pause. I want you to check in with yourself. Allow yourself the space, the time to really figure out how you're doing. As men, we oftentimes feel like something's wrong with us when we feel overwhelmed, when we feel stressed, when we feel like we're being stretched too thin. What I want you to understand, and let me be extremely clear in saying this, there's nothing wrong with feeling overwhelmed. There's nothing wrong with being stressed. Those are signs and indications that you may just need to sit down and take a break and take a rest. That means that you may have to be intentional about providing yourself with some self-love, with some self-care. Now, for some of us, that unwinding, that self-love, that self-care can turn into self-medicating. Instead of talking, instead of expressing and allowing others to know how we feel, many of the men I know have turned to self-medicate. When they're feeling overwhelmed, when they're feeling stressed out, they might begin to smoke a little bit more. And they're not smoking for recreation, not for relaxation, but they're smoking for relief. Be honest. How many guys do you know, friends, family members, maybe even yourself, drink a little bit more because I'm feeling stressed out and I'm trying to cope. What is your coping mechanism? How do you handle the stress of being a provider, the stress of having to solve problems, the stress of being a superhero at times? How do you handle the feeling that it's all up to you to take care of the family, to provide resources, and to meet the needs of each and every person within your life? How do you cope? I had an interesting conversation over the last few weeks. I am a sports fan, Atlanta Falcons fan, to be particular. Rise up. One of the things as a Falcons fan I saw and I kind of paid attention to, I don't know how much attention many other people gave to this, but one of the players on the Falcons roster by the name of Calvin Ridley ended up taking a leave of absence from the season. I think Calvin played maybe 5 or 6 games, if that many. And he left a note or a message on his Twitter and said he needed to take some time away. He said, "These past few weeks have been very challenging. And as much as I'd like to be here on the field competing with my teammates, I need to step away from football at this time and focus on my mental well-being. This will help me be the best version of myself now and in the future." This is a direct quote from Calvin Ridley's Twitter account. When I read that, I thought to myself, how many men do I know that have the courage, the humility, the vulnerability, and the authenticity to say, this has been a very challenging week. This has been a very challenging day. I need to stop. I need to pause. I need to step away and make sure that I'm in the best place possible before I try to serve others, before I try to provide for others. How many men do I know? How many friends do I have that are willing to make that comment? Because what I know with complete certainty is that as a man, at some point, you felt that too. At some point, you felt like things were overwhelming, that things were difficult, that things were challenging. You felt the pressure, the anxiety of stress building up. Were you able to say you needed to step away, that you needed to take time, that you needed to focus on your mental well-being? See, I think oftentimes as men, we believe that if we're not always strong, if we don't do it, it won't get done. I have to suffer in spite of. I have to be willing to endure. I have to keep grinding. Not recognizing, not realizing or understanding that we do our family and those around us, the people that we love, the people that we care about, and ultimately ourself, a complete and utter disservice when we allow ourselves to get so worn down that we can't function, that we can't provide like we desire to provide. We can't be the resource that we desire to be. What I want you to know and what I want you to understand today is that self-love and self-care is not selfish. As a man, taking time to acknowledge that you're struggling, that something is challenging, or that a situation is difficult, overwhelming, or that you just feel a little anxiety, it's okay. It's all right. There's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't mean that you're weak. It doesn't mean that you're less of a man. It actually conveys strength. It actually conveys courage. Oftentimes, we are willing to sacrifice as men and stretch ourselves far beyond the limits. We wear ourselves out and we wear ourselves down. We crash and we crumble because we refuse to stop and check in. Check in with ourselves, to check in with our friends, to check in with the other men that we know and just see how each other are doing, to simply provide the space for one another to share what's going on in our lives. Don't underestimate the power of asking how you're doing. Allowing someone to express how they're doing, what's going on, and the things that they're dealing with within their life can be a great resource. It can be a great encouragement. It can be the bridge that helps someone get through. In my experience, when men say that they're hurting, when they express that they're tired or they're bothered, it gets overlooked. It gets brushed to the side. Sometimes it even gets laughed off. In Calvin's case, it was met with scrutiny. It was almost as if he needed to prove something was wrong, that he needed to make his well-being and mental health a priority. I knew a lot of people that made the comment, well, he's getting paid too much money. He needs to suck it up. He needs to man up. How many of you have heard the same thing or have felt the same thing? When you made the comment or made the statement that things were challenging, that things were difficult, that you were feeling anxiety or, hey man, I'm not okay. Were you met with resistance? Did people laugh? Did people shrug? Were you met with indifference? Were you met with silence? Did the people around you try to make you feel or think that you need to toughen up? You need to man up? Oftentimes, I think that it's the invisible injuries, the pain that's going on the inside, the stuff that people can't see that hurts the most. Because people can't see physically what's going on. They underrate it, they overlook it, or they completely dismiss it as not being real or relevant. If you made that same statement, how many of your friends would chuckle or laugh at all? Who do you know that would listen, that would lean in and ask questions and try to encourage you and try to help uncover and figure out why you're feeling this way and help you put together a plan or provide you with a strategy or just some encouragement on how to get through it? I think that as a man, we've been conditioned to believe that so much of our value is in the resources, oftentimes material resources, that we provide. I don't think we understand that our true value starts with how we view ourselves. If you don't think enough of yourself to take care of yourself mentally, understand that you put yourself in a very compromising situation. You put yourself in a situation where you may not be able to provide the meaningful resources, the time, the love, the energy to your family, to your friends. At some point, we have to begin to make ourselves and our well-being a priority. I think trying to be strong all the time can be extremely exhausting. I'll say that again. Trying to be strong all the time, trying to hold it all together, trying to act as though nothing is bothering you. You don't feel stress. You don't have any anxiety. You've got it all together can be exhausting. I said it. Now you can too. It's okay not to have every solution. It's okay not to solve every problem. It's okay to take a break and compose yourself. If you don't make yourself a priority, if you don't make your well-being a priority, you'll have nothing left to give to those that you love and those you want to share with the most. Understand that you cannot pour from an empty pitcher. You cannot pour from an empty cup. I know as men, we all have a hero complex, and we want to save, we want to help, we want to fix, we want to figure things out, we want to find solutions. But in order for us to be able to do that, and to do that at a high level, requires us to have enough self-awareness to realize when we need to sit down, when we need to take care of ourselves, when we need to find solutions to help ourselves. I'm sure most of you have taken a flight. One of the first things they say is, in case of emergency, put your mask on first. Don't go try to save your family. Don't go try to save the passenger across from you. Put your mask on first. Make sure that you're well. Make sure that you're good. And then, and only then, do you proceed to try to take care of and help assist others. We understand it on the airplane, but we don't apply that simple concept to our personal lives and to our personal well-being. The belief that you can keep grinding it out, that you can keep going even when you're worn down and worn out, has poisoned and crippled many of us. And frankly, I think that it has led to untimely death for a lot of us. I think it's time that we stopped, that we paused, and begin to look and think about how we can take a different approach. I started this conversation by saying this was a check-in. This was a wellness check, guys. Just a couple of suggestions. Check in with your boys. Check in with the men in your life. Ask them how they're doing. Ask them what's going on. Give them the space to talk, to share, without feeling like they'll be judged, without feeling like they'll be laughed at or made fun of. Give them the space to be vulnerable and to open up. For those that like to write, maybe you think about getting a notebook. Maybe you think about getting a journal and just writing down how you feel. Some of you may find it easy to talk with your spouse. I know there's a certain level of stigma associated with mental health and mental well-being within the Black community, but I would also recommend seeing a counselor, seeking a coach, seeking a therapist. Don't allow yourself to get to a place where you're so worn down that you can't do anything, that you're paralyzed, that you're to the point of no return. I got one final question for you, fellas. I started this and I asked the question, when is it okay for a man not to be okay? When is it okay to express that you're having trouble handling the day-to-day stress, pressures, and expectations that our family places on us, that the world places on us, that our jobs, our careers, that life places on us? My question is, how would you respond if your wife, if your significant other, your girl, your old lady, one of your kids came in and said, "Daddy, honey, baby, I'm having a hard time. I feel stressed out. I feel like things are becoming very challenging. I'm starting to feel like I'm overwhelmed, like I'm drowning." How would you respond if one of those individuals came to you and made those statements and made those comments? Would you shrug it off? Or would you do everything in your power to listen and provide space for them to share how they're feeling and thinking, and then try to figure out solutions to help them? How do you respond to yourself when you have the mental conversation and you know that you're feeling overwhelmed? You know that you're feeling stressed. How do you respond to yourself? Do you tell yourself, "Hey man, you got this. Shut up. Ain't no time to complain about it now. It is what it is. You got to get through this. You got to grind it out"? What do you say to yourself? How do you respond when you have those thoughts, those feelings rise up within you? Compare that to how you respond to your wife, to your girl, to your kids. If you respond to your wife, your girl, your kids, or anyone else with compassion, empathy, why can't you respond to yourself that way? If you can make the needs of others a priority in your life, why can't you make yourself and your needs and your well-being a priority too? This is a wellness check. I hope that each and every one of you brothers that are listening takes time to check in with yourself, takes time to check in with your friends and with the men in your life. I hope that you're making your mental well-being a priority. One last note. If any of you listening ever need to talk, ever need to get something off your chest, reach out to me. You can find me at The Authentic Exchange Podcast on IG, The Authentic Exchange Podcast on Twitter. You can find me at The Authentic Exchange Podcast at gmail.com. I'm always willing to listen, talk with you, and hold space for you. Much love, much respect. I appreciate everyone that's tuning in today. Thanks for listening. Thanks for downloading and checking out the podcast. I hope that you share this with someone so that it can be a benefit and a blessing. Until next time, much love and much abundance. As always, never forget to learn, to love, to grow, and to always move with grace. I'm Josh Bird. This is The Authentic Exchange, and I'll holler at you next time.